Hello, my name is Kshant Krismurthy, and my topic today will be on video games and the automotive industry. So, let's first start off with some basic uh, background. So, let's talk about the rise of the automobile. So, the first gas-powered automobile was patented by Carl Benz, who was originally the founder of Mercedes-Benz in 1886. Um, from what everyone understands, Henry Ford was the one that created cars. Not entirely true. He was the first one to mass produce automobiles on assembly lines to make them so that way consumers can easily get their hands on them. So Carl Benz was the first to create it. Henry Ford was the first to monopolize on it. So with cars came races and competitions. The first organized races were a reliability test from Paris to Rouen, France, which is a distance of 80 kilometers. That wasn't the first true race. The first true race was actually held from Paris to Bordeaux in France, which is a distance of 1,178 kilometers. This had about 26 different racers from three different brands of cars. Nowadays, we have a few current racing leagues, some to note WRC, the World Rally Car, NASCAR slash Daytona 500, 24 Hours at Le Mans, which is a big one. Nürburgring, which a lot of people ship their cars over to Germany to drive. Formula Drift, which is a really cool one. Everyone from every part of the world drives in this one as well. The first racing games before the 1990s were very start and stop based. Very like track, so like they're on a flat 2D kind of physics. The first racing game was Space Race, and then in the 1980s, Namco's Rally X became a thing. It was available as an arcade game, and it was available at home through the console. Then Namco released Pole Position and Final Lap, kind of successors to each other. This was the first racing game to feature licensed cars, especially from Formula One. So from 1990 to 2000, the racing game market kind of grew because consumers really wanted to see newer cars and kind of have more of a family sense fun. So Nintendo, when they moved to the U.S. market, they introduced F-Zero and Super Mario Kart. A lot of these games were multiplayer. Uh, Electronic Arts started the Need for Speed franchise, which I think it had a few number of titles in there. Need for Speed 1, 2, and 3, um, and Hot Pursuit, I believe. Gran Turismo 1 and 2 were released in this time frame. Number 1 had over 100 different cars and 11 different tracks. They kind of one up themselves. The second one, they had 650 different cars and 27 tracks. Other notable titles during this time frame were Ridge Racer, Burnout series, the Carmageddon, Daytona, which featured a lot of the Daytona and NASCAR cars, and a dedicated Formula One racing game for the bigger consoles. 2001 to 2010 was a very significant year for racing games. This was when visuals on consoles kind of upgraded to better graphics. Um, During this time, a lot of visual media or multimedia movies became very notable for having customized cars, which led to Need for Speed and Midnight Club by Rockstar, to introduce heavy visual customization to tuner cars. This is, of course, fueled by the first Fast and Furious movie and the car culture at that time. Midnight Club by Rockstar became the first to have an open world race game, which then Need for Speed then followed after. Gran Turismo kind of went off route and made their racing game into a simulation racer, so they updated their physics to kind of make it feel like the car had tougher braking, tougher suspension. And then later on in the decade, Microsoft then released Forza Motorsport to kind of compete against Sony's Gran Turismo to kind of make it a simulation. Other notable titles during this time frame were Project Gotham, Ford Racing, which was a branded racing game by Ford, Nicktoons Racing, which was a combatant to Super Mario Kart, and Juice, which was a competitor against Need for Speed and Midnight Club at the time. 2011 to the present time of racing games, Forza Motorsport and Gran Turismo have now led their respective consoles as the head racing game titles. Uh, so Forza for Microsoft, or sorry, for the Xbox, and Gran Turismo for the Sony PlayStation. Need for Speed had actually kind of went through kind of a loop and had gone through three different developers at the time. So it went through kind of like an up and down standpoint. So even to this day, is kind of off on what they're doing. Ubisoft launched the Crew and the Crew 2, and it had itself as a great um, arcade racer with open world. Now, between 2011 and the present, I think during the recession time, a lot of game titles were dropped due to budget cuts and studios being shut down. So a lot of these game titles such as Burnout, Ridge Racer, Driver, Grid, Test Drive, Midnight Club, and Blur were eventually never seen again after this time. Now, a lot of good things come out of media. And a lot of them are very cool to see them in racing games. One of them being the Porsche 911 from in Cyberpunk 2077 is the only licensed car in that game. The BMW M3 GTR. The only other game that had it was the earlier Need for Speed, and then it came out in Most Wanted. But ever since the debut in Most Wanted, it has been in every single Need for Speed ever since then. Ken Block's Unicorn. It is a one of muscle car. As you see at the bottom there. Uh, it was it was first featured in Need for Speed. That was the first. And Takumi's Corolla A86 from Initial D. In the Initial D arcade games, it actually was a secret car which you had to unlock after beating the all sorry between after beating all the drivers. What is the correlation between video games and the automotive industry? Well, as I said, it gives the consumer a taste of what is in store. It kind of gives them a step and I guess a visual look at the car outside and inside and see can kind of give like a kind of a sneak peek at how it can feel. It also gives the automotive industry to kind of showcase their brand and connect with the next generation of drivers. So by letting the cars be in video games, and like this could be to a 10-year-old, for example. If they get a chance to drive a Honda Civic in, let's say, Gran Turismo, it could actually let them say, "Hey, I like the feel of this car. I probably feel similar to how it would be on the road." Because Gran Turismo has had the physics to replicate how the car feels on in actual real life. It also gives aftermarket companies a showcase their brand. So in games like Need for Speed, Midnight Club, Juiced, all those old-fashioned racing games, all heavy customization. A lot of them are driven by aftermarket customization by companies like Brembo, ABAC Springs, Rocket Bunny, RWB. Um, those companies have a way to showcase their stuff because if you look at cars now, everyone that customizes the cars uses parts from these kind of companies. Now, the issue is here is that automotive companies are pulling their cars from video games. Why? Well, one of the reasons why this is happening is because, well, one, they don't like illegal activities. So many games like Need for Speed that let you street race and take down cops kind of gives the company kind of a bad image because your car is technically fighting against police, street racing, causing havoc, etc. A very notable thing that happened in Toronto was 2006. A street racing teen crashed his car into a taxi cab, killing the driver of the taxi cab. Upon further investigation, the police found that the driver, the teen, had a copy of Need for Speed Most Wanted in his back seat. So it kind of gave Need for Speed a bad reputation there. Um, and back to reputation, some companies have a high standard when it comes to clientele of their fan base. Big famous one here in Toronto, I guess, with celebrity, is Deadmau5. He his car got he got a cease and desist after he custom wrapped his Ferrari and had a custom cat logo instead of the Ferrari logo. Ferrari does not allow any customization on the cars in video games, except for wheels and paint, as it will ruin their prestige of their cars, as they see. Another reason is to look towards a better future. So companies want their cars to be the future and let it be for the future of the company, and they feel like and some companies seem to say that video game players won't buy their cars. In 2009, Akio Toyoda, the president of Toyota, he said that the video games had hurt their sales in cars in real life. But actually, after this message, people started saying that their cars are only family cars. So, like the Toyota Corolla and Camry, there were no sports cars that appealed to the young generation or any car enthusiast. In 2016, when a fan of Need for Speed tweeted to Toyota to ask, "Hey, why isn't your cars in the new Need for Speed game?" Um, they replied saying that Need for Speed promotes legal racing, and we will feature cars in a game such as that. So since then, Toyota had seen decrease in sales due to having no sports cars, and they did increase the number of family cars. But now in the recent years, they have included cars like the Supra, the new GR86. They have started bringing in sports versions of their modern cars to kind of appeal to younger generations. So they have changed a little bit here, but this is just to point out that sometimes your words can't be for thought. Next thing is licensing. So companies, they want money for their cars. They design these cars for money. They didn't do it for free. So cars, so a lot of them can come in the form of a brand deal. It could be because the company says, "Hey, you got to promote a car as as the hero car. It has to be the car that that has to be showcased on the cover." Or they had to pay for it. They had to pay like a small fee, like uh, maybe like uh, maybe like 1% of the sales had to go towards the company. But of course, then manufacturer might have say, hey, you can't do this to my car. So, for example, you can only have limited cosmetic damage to the car because they don't want their car to look battered and beat. So, like if you have a Lamborghini, for example, in a game, they probably don't want their car to have a lot of damage. And then, of course, customization, especially in Ferrari's case, little to no customization to keep to the brand specifications. Some companies can get away with this. So indie racing games are small titles created by a small group of people to kind of get uh, everyone in the car community to kind of have that freedom that they wanted. So indie racing games can create custom cars or even copy silhouettes of other cars and kind of use them without having the actual name of the or brand of the car of the company. So GTA 5 is notorious for this. If you look at the bottom, the Dodge Challenger, the one on the left is the one on GTA 5. The one on the right is the actual car. They look very similar. Of course, licensing, they know how to license a Challenger. They can have it similar to it. Um, Car Drift Racing, very popular one now, and Super Street, the game, not a very popular game because it kind of had bad physics, but it's fine. Now, indie games are also very popular because they have no restriction on cars. They have good communication with the fan base, so have a lot of forums where you can post your ideas. If you want to see certain cars, see certain tracks, Any ideas to any bugs that you see, stuff like that. Now, with the future racing games, VR has become a very immersive uh, experience for drivers and for players alike. Video games are used to also research what younger drivers expect in new cars. So stuff like heads-up displays. So when you see a tachometer in a racing game, it probably might be similar to something that a company might be looking to put into their cars exactly or similar to. The styling of the car. So like what cars do players buy? What to the cars the players a similar fashion that cars people will be looking forward to. Interior styling. So a lot of games might have interior styling. So people choose red interiors or stuff like that. However, the markets are moving towards EVs, and current drivers don't like them a lot because it has a lack of feel, lack of safety, not cost effective. A lot of racing games that do have EVs or even electrics or hybrids, um, they don't feel like actual cars. They kind of only have one gear. Many young drivers prefer old generation cars, especially in real life. A lot of people buy older cars uh, for that reason. And now for final thoughts, video games and automotive industry are really, really, really tied together. Um, without either or, they kind of plummet because video games kind of hype up that car. It kind of hypes up the company a little bit. It kind of gives the company a step, a kind of footing ground to kind of pull in a customer. Me as a car guy, my first car was a Honda Civic, and I've been playing video games, racing games for a long time, and uh, I've driven Honda Civics in video games, and I wanted that to be my first car. I now drive a Lexus because I started liking how Lexus looked in video games, and since then, so yeah, so they go hand in hand, and I feel like video companies might be looking at it at the wrong direction. I feel like they should be open to having their cars in video games. Maybe not all, but maybe like cars that, like sports cars that they are trying to sell. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.